Hello, my name is Aaron Connolly and I'm the Student Placement Coordinator for New South Wales. It's my job to coordinate placements for students and also work with agencies to find the most appropriate and suitable students for their placement opportunities.
Hey Aaron, thanks for making time to talk about placement preparation today. So if I imagine I'm a student in the last few months of my course and I'm beginning to get ready to find placement, what happens? How do I go about finding placement? What do I need to think about? Who is going to help me? Can you just tell me a little bit more about how it all works?
Yes. So students should get their login details to Sonia approximately 6 months before they should be on placement. So first and foremost, what students need to do priority is to get themselves an updated national criminal check. First and foremost, it's a requirement of all placement agencies, and most recently it is now a requirement of all placement agencies for a student to also get a working with children check. So there is a pre-placement section in Sonia, and there are links to the National Criminal Check website and the Working with Children Check website also. So first and foremost, those documents need to be secured and uploaded into the student's Sonia profile.
So no matter what placement I'm going to end up with, that would be, if I were a student getting ready for placement, these would be my first steps.
First and foremost, the requirements.
National Police Check, Working with Children's Check, and
then would be the resume.
And the resume.
The resume, okay. So the next step would be for a student to complete a student counselling resume. It's unlike a corporate resume, and we have a sample in our Sonia online that has various different ideas. We have, most of our students are actually changing industries, so they've been managers, they've been accountants, etc. So some of our students are straight out of college. So we have a lot of different ideas and a lot of sample resumes to give students ideas of how this should be formatted and what sort of skills, professional development, etc. they should be including in their counselling resume.
So that resume is prepared to then be passed on to the placement organisation?
Yes, so eventually those resumes will be forwarded to the agencies that the students are in negotiations with placement for. So what I recommend all counselling students do primarily before sending their resume to agencies is sending it directly to me. So I can review and I can give feedback on the resume before they start sending it out to agencies. Okay, so the student has their national criminal check, their working with children check, and they're approved by ACAP counselling resume.
So that needs to get approved even. You help with preparation and with fine-tuning it, and then you approve it.
Yes. So we can give the final green light, so to speak, to start approaching the agencies. So at that stage, it is the students. Basically, it's time to start building the search. So who you're going to call. So we have a lot of resources that we strongly urge students to use. We have a database in Sonia that has a list of over 600 organisations that have taken counselling students in the past. In addition, we have links to the National Health Service Directory, Newtown Neighbourhood Centres, and Way Ahead. They're all online websites that list all counselling agencies in and around New South Wales.
So 600 in New South Wales alone?
600 nationally, actually. Right. The Way Ahead is the agency specifically searches for New South Wales counselling agencies. Okay, so at that stage, basically we ask students to create a list of agencies that they wish to do their placement with. So some students are restricted to location, some students have a particular interest, so we leave it up to the students to pick and choose what agencies they would like to approach. Every student should have compile a list of at least 50 agencies.
50 agencies that they are most, like that's the agencies they're most interested in joining?
Agencies that they can have a viable student placement. So within their location, within their area of interest, and most importantly, that meets requirements. So at that stage, the students have all their documentation ready to send off to agencies. They have a list of agencies that they're going to contact. Obviously, this list should have contact details, phone number, etc. Then it's down to contacting agencies. So what I say personally is never email an agency with your request for a placement, because they simply get ignored. Agencies are very busy. Those inboxes are usually being monitored by receptionists, by non-key stakeholders, people who cannot make decisions, and they just fall to the bottom of the barrel. We always say call an agency. It's the only way to actually succeed in your placement search.
And who would they be talking to within an agency? Like, so they dial the number, somebody picks up the phone, who would they be asking for?
Okay, so first and foremost, I would always ask to speak to the counsellor of the agency.
The counsellor.
The counsellor. The counsellor is most likely going to be the person who will be supervising, so giving up their time to supervise a student. So they most likely will be the deciding person on whether a student can be accepted or not. Now, sometimes you may not be able to get through to the counsellor. The counsellor may be in session. The counsellor may not be in that day. So it's always good to have a conversation with the receptionist. Even though they are not the decision makers, they do hold a lot of information. They may know whether there's a student there. They may know whether they've taken a student before, or they might even be the person that asks for your resume and sets it on that counsellor's desk. So yes, you're primarily seeking either the counsellor or the manager, but it's always worth having that initial conversation with the receptionist, because you can get some key information on their programs, etc. Okay.
And so are there particular questions or information that that initial phone call should include?
There are. I'm not going to go into that detail in this video, but I will explain exactly where that information is located. So the Student Placement Department has developed a resource called the Student Placement Search Manual. It is a detailed document that has a script. Basically, it has an actual script that students should make themselves familiar with before calling agencies. It has if scenarios, so it basically it explains what you should say, when you should say it, and then actually where to go with the answer you've been given. So for example, have you ever taken a student for placement? No, we've never taken a student before. Some students at that stage would call that a day and give up. This search manual actually coaches students on where you should go next. So, for example, if an agency says, no, we've never taken a student before, you would follow up with, okay, well, would you be open to the idea of accepting a final year counselling student who has volunteering in XYZ, for example. So it basically has scenarios and responses, extra questions to investigate that counselling opportunity, to investigate whether there is an opportunity there.
So for the student, a document such as the one you just described is really helpful. They can sit on the phone with the manual next to them and be supported step by step through the conversation with the agency.
Extremely. That's why we recommend making yourself familiar. So feedback I've had from students, first and foremost, the Student Placement Department, we strongly recommend that students spend at least an hour a week on the phone making calls to agencies. So they have their list of 50 agencies and they have the script in front of them. And the feedback I've had from students is the first time they picked up that phone, first time they made themselves familiar, they were quite anxious, a little bit apprehensive, but after that 1 hour, maybe the 10th phone call they had made, they knew exactly what to say. They no longer had to refer to the script. It was like second nature. So yes, that is a really important document to have for your search.
Yeah, and I can imagine the skill that they learn along the way is also going to be helpful for them once they finish their placement, finish their study, and they want to go into the paid workforce and apply for jobs in the industry. Already knowing how to approach that sort of process will be invaluable.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, the script teaches students to listen for the agency's needs. So a common mistake some students make is to call an agency and request. I need this, I need that, can you provide? This script actually teaches students to listen out to an agency for what their needs are. So to ask questions like, do you run any psychoeducational programs currently? If the agency says, no, we currently don't, we would love to, we don't have the resources, etc., etc., then the student can actually, through some coaching from the script, can offer, so are you aware that as a graduate diploma student in my final year, I have undergone the group work unit? If the student got a good grade, they can mention the grade. At this high distinction in the group work unit, I'd be more than happy to run a psychoeducational group each week at your agency on anxiety. Do you feel that that is something your clients would get value from? So these open-ended questions to listen out for agencies' needs and to identify where the placement opportunity may arise.
And I can imagine if they do research on the agency beforehand, look at their website or look at their advertising material, they can also glean from that information some of those key pieces that they could then respond to in their first phone call.
Exactly. Preparation is key. So if you have looked at the website and you're familiar with the client base, with the services they offer, then your suggestions can hit home a lot more, so to speak.
So preparation is key. That's
preparation is always
that's
key.
The key phrase, isn't it?
Yes.
The key message.
And one thing, a field phone call may not necessarily be a field phone call. For example, you may get chatting to a receptionist. After 15-20 minutes, it may become apparent that this agency will not meet requirements. However, at this stage, you've had a 15-minute conversation, created some rapport with a receptionist in that field. She may be able to give you a number to contact. After understanding what you're after and that they can't meet your needs, they may say, have you tried XYZ agency? I know they're looking for students.
So that networking, that
Exactly.
kind of stepping into the industry and getting to know people and getting a sense of where the need is
Exactly.
essential in their search.
And the greatest thing is about this field is everyone has time to speak to you. You know, unlike any other field, if you call an agency and have a conversation, they will never be abrupt and hang up the phone. They will always be as helpful as they can. So it's a good field to be making cold calls in.
Okay, so now I'm the student. I imagine myself being a student. I've got my list of 50 agencies. I've started to make calls. I find an agency that is willing to take me. What happens next?
Okay, so usually that agency would invite the student to attend an interview on site. So usually those interviews are 30 minutes. Occasionally you will have a 1 hour interview. And that's basically it. So a student can contact me and I can give them some potential questions they may be asked. We can do some interview skills training over the phone, but it's basically all about meeting the agency at that stage. They will assess your body language. They will ask you certain questions on why that agency, what value can you provide to that agency. They'll also be monitoring your dress code, your body language, your tone, your energy. It's a meet and greet just before they make their final decision.
So they want to get a sense of who is this student, who is this person, will they fit into our organisation, will they fit in with the team, do they have the kind of qualities that we're looking for.
Exactly, and it's not unfamiliar for an agency to then maybe walk the student through the organisation, maybe let them meet a few team members, and that's still the assessment stage to see does the student share the same values as our agency. So that is first and foremostly how students should be searching for placement. Now we do have other support options. So in each state, the Student Placement Department runs what's called the ACAP Placement Program. This is a program where we offer roughly 40 to 50 placements each term in each state. So these are placement partners and agencies who have been working with ACAP for a long time, number of years. They all meet our student placement requirements and have done for a long time, and these agencies rely on ACAP to provide them with the highest quality students. So each term that program is released, usually in week 2 of term. So there is 40 and 50 placements, and there is usually more students searching for placement and applying than there is positions. So this program is very competitive and should not be relied upon solely. I invite all students to apply, but there is no guarantee they will secure a placement through this program, which is why students should always primarily be searching for their own placement.
So a student really needs to be proactive, and they can't rely on ACAP providing a placement, because that's not necessarily going to happen. So for a student to go out and do their own research, their own work, and their own a proactive approach to the agencies is really essential.
Yes, yes. For example, many students have a look at our opportunities and feel that's just not the area that they want to go into, or that it may be too far, and those students choose to not apply for the program and continue with their own search to find the placement that they really want. So this program has a process. The program is open for 2 weeks, and for those 2 weeks, students basically send in their applications. So these applications are actually emailed to each student personally, and it has 2 documents. It has the list of opportunities. Students need to firstly have a glance through all the opportunities. There should be 50 placements and maybe 12 different agencies offering those placements.
Right.
It is students' responsibility to investigate these opportunities and actually determine which are feasible. Some may be too far to travel. Some may be requesting specific units to have been studied that student hasn't completed. So it's really up to the student to pick 3 agencies. Every student's limited to 3 preferences. So they have to ensure that the preferences that they select are viable placements and the placements that they really want. So at that stage, once they've got their opportunities selected, they open their application. This application asks for their firstly their preferenced agencies. Then we also ask for specific information like what days can you attend placement? Can you attend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? We then ask, can the students attend an interview on campus? So we're just gathering information. And at the end of the application, there is 5 questions on basically why that student should be selected for that agency.
And this they find on Sonia, this application?
This will be emailed to their personal email address in the first few weeks of each term.
Right.
So if they've got a Sonia login, they will receive the invite for this program. So once the student has identified the agencies they wish to apply for, they then complete the application. They then attach their student placement resume and they return it to the email address that they need to return that program to. That will be within the email that they receive with the document.
So that's to the organization?
No, that's to the Student Placement Department.
Right. Okay.
First and foremost.
Right.
So at that stage, then that's, as you can see, the importance of having everything prepared beforehand, the resume, etc. So they attach their national criminal check, they're working with children, and their resume and their application. and return it to the student placement department. So when all applications are collated, we invite every student who has applied to attend ACAP for a 15-minute interview. So me and another ACAP staff member will interview a student preliminary for 15 minutes, and that's to get an idea of, just to get a feel for the student. You know, what are your interests? Have you any volunteering? What was your previous employment? Why these agencies? And once we've interviewed every student, all their feedback goes to the agencies they've preferenced. So their resume, their working with children national police check, how they're presented during their interview and their application goes to all their agencies. At that stage, the agencies get back to ACAP with who they want to interview. So there is always secondary interviews at the agency, and the agency then gets back to ACAP with a short list of students. Those interviews go ahead, students attend a secondary interview, and then the final students are selected.
And the final selection is done by the agency?
Final selection is always done by the agency, yes. So we do the screening, so to speak, and then we provide recommendations to the agencies depending on what they have asked us to look out for. But at that stage, it's over to the agencies for their final selection.
I'm struck by how thorough the process is, and also how time-consuming it may well be. So the suggestion of starting, the recommendation of starting 6 months earlier sounds really important, like it's a really important time frame.
Without a doubt, yes.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you think might be helpful for students to be aware of?
Yes. The key, so I've been working with these placement agencies for a long time. I know exactly what they're looking for in a student, and what they're looking for is volunteering.
Right.
Volunteering is key. So first and foremost, students should be volunteering from the start of their course, in my opinion, if they have space to do so. If they come to placement, if they get to their Sonia login and they realise that they should be, in order to increase their chances in this program and in their own search, volunteering is really key. I would always strongly firstly recommend students try and volunteer in agencies where a counselling placement could materialise eventually. So if they can volunteer in the field, doing some sort of group work, anything that involves counselling primarily is a great volunteering, really time well spent. Then even any other form of volunteering, so working at homeless shelters, giving out food, things like that, it all proves, it shows to agencies that the student really is serious about what they want to do, that they really want to help people. And when it comes down to selection of students, I know that agencies will select a student who has been volunteering over a student who hasn't. Considering there was if they were undecided, the student who volunteers will always secure the placement. So students, if not volunteering now, should be looking for some sort of counselling volunteering. And again, we have an entire section of volunteering in Sonia with lots of ideas and agencies that the students can approach.
So volunteering is really an essential part of this process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it helps so much when it comes to placement. If you've done some sort of volunteering, you will have a general idea of how these agencies work. You may have even encountered a crisis situation. You may have undergone some sort of work health and safety. It just makes you a little bit more familiar and a little more confident with walking into placement, because it won't be your first time, so to speak, in that area.
And of course then down the track, when finding a job in the industry, volunteering will also be a very helpful feather in the cap.
Exactly, and as we said about the student placement resumes, there's a specific section on volunteering. So the more volunteering a student does, then the better their resume looks, the stronger applicant they are when searching for a placement.
Sounds like very good advice. Well, I think that's been a really informative and very thorough and detailed overview of what the placement team does and how you support people finding a placement. So I thank you very much for your time, Aaron, and yeah,
No problem.
thank you.